In this podcast episode, Dustin Poirier opens up about his recent struggles with mental health, the challenges of retirement from professional fighting, and a highly publicized incident at an airport that led to his arrest. He discusses the impact of his upbringing, his battle with depression, his relationship with alcohol, and how these have influenced both his career and personal life. The conversation also covers his efforts to find new purpose post-retirement, his family dynamics, and his commitment to making a positive impact through charity work. Dustin reflects on his childhood growing up in Lafayette, Louisiana, as part of a working-class family. His parents divorced when he was very young, and he recounts memories of violence and turmoil at home, which shaped much of his early experience. His father struggled with alcoholism throughout Dustin's life, contributing to instability and challenges in their relationship. Despite the hardships, Dustin found strength in his mother and grandmother, who helped raise him and provide a constant source of support. He also has two brothers and a sister he met later in life. Dustin acknowledges the deep impact of his upbringing on his development and how some unresolved childhood issues continue to affect him. Dustin candidly discusses his long-standing problematic relationship with alcohol, which began in his early teens. Though he went through periods of sobriety during his fighting career, retirement led to a return of heavier drinking habits. He shares the details of an incident at the Atlanta airport on Father's Day, where he, under the influence of alcohol and overwhelmed by emotions about his father's homelessness and struggles, got into an altercation that resulted in his arrest for public intoxication. Dustin expresses regret and takes full responsibility for his actions without attributing blame to external factors, though he acknowledges the role of his mental state and family history. Following the incident, he deleted all social media to avoid negative influences and focus on recovery. Throughout the episode, Dustin is open about his bouts with depression, describing how it feels like a heavy cloud that he cannot escape when it hits. He shares that although some days he feels fine and even hopeful, others are dark and challenging, sometimes leading him to shut down or stay in bed. He has been to therapy on and off for years, but admits that when he started feeling better, he stopped practicing the coping mechanisms he learned, leading to relapse. He talks about the difficulty and stigma he initially felt about attending therapy, but now reframes it as a strength. The episode also touches on how mental health in athletes, particularly those who grew up with absent or struggling fathers, can be complicated and long-lasting. Dustin reflects deeply on his decision to retire at 36, describing it as the end of an era. Fighting was not just a career, but his entire identity and therapeutic outlet. The loss of that purpose has been challenging, leaving a void that he hasn't been able to fill. He shares mixed feelings about retirement, pride in his achievements, but also fear of the coming years without the structure and adrenaline of competition. Dustin talks about the absence of formal support or guidance for fighters transitioning out of the sport and the mental and emotional adjustment that entails. He notes an ongoing internal battle with the urge to fight again, but concedes the likelihood of his return is low. A considerable portion of the conversation deals with Dustin's complicated relationship with his father, who remains homeless and addicted to alcohol. Dustin describes his efforts to help, including a recent attempt to have his father taken into protective custody, which failed due to his father's resistance. This struggle weighs heavily on Dustin, especially as he balances his role as a husband and father to his own children with the pain of watching his father's decline. He expresses a need to protect his mental well-being and set boundaries while continuing to hope for his father's recovery. Dustin describes how fighting occupied his mind and body for over 2 decades, serving as his path to greatness, a focus for his energies, and a source of identity. It provided structure, goals, and community, acting as a form of therapy that helped him navigate emotional and psychological challenges. With retirement, he is seeking new avenues for growth, but acknowledges that no other pursuit has yet filled the space left by fighting. He shares thoughts on how this pattern mirrors challenges faced by other athletes and individuals who lose their central life purpose abruptly. Despite the airport incident being public and attracting criticism, Dustin notes a surprising and encouraging amount of understanding and support from fans, fellow fighters, and the general public. This, he believes, is because of his long history of authenticity, professionalism, and openness about his struggles. Supportive messages from fighters like John Jones and Matt Brown have reinforced this sentiment. Dustin expresses gratitude for this kindness, but remains focused on personal accountability and growth. At 37, Dustin is still searching for a new path that can provide meaning and drive akin to fighting. He has begun engaging more with commentary, podcasts, and media work related to MMA, seeking to stay connected to the sport. He is committed to sobriety, mental health maintenance, and spending quality time with his family. Dustin acknowledges the difficulty of redefining himself, but is determined to apply the same dedication to whatever his next chapter may be. He remains optimistic about his capacity to set new challenges and achieve new goals. Dustin highlights his philanthropic efforts through the Good Fight Foundation, which he established with his wife after auctioning off his fight gear to help local families. The foundation focuses on providing school supplies, supporting education, and community development projects, including water wells in Uganda. He describes hands-on involvement in packing backpacks and stretching resources to maximize impact. For Dustin, this work is a way to leave a positive legacy and contribute meaningfully beyond the fighting world. The conversation covers Dustin's awareness of the risks posed by brain trauma common in combat sports and the potential for chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE. He has undergone neurological scans that indicate some abnormal findings, possibly related to his fighting career, but emphasizes the uncertainty surrounding diagnosis until post-mortem examination. Dustin discusses behavioral changes he's noticed and expresses interest in learning more, but does not attribute his recent struggles solely to brain injury. The subject adds another layer to his reflections on retirement and mental health. Throughout the podcast, Dustin consistently emphasizes personal responsibility for his actions, refusing to use his mental health challenges or family history as excuses for his missteps. He values honesty and vulnerability and wants to use his story to help others who may be facing similar difficulties. Dustin's willingness to speak openly about setbacks, recovery, and ongoing effort illustrates his commitment to growth and authenticity, both as a public figure and as a person.